Hey everybody, I'm Mike.
I'm Bob.
I'm Spencer.
I'm Daniel.
And this is the Board Game Rundown. Today we are reviewing Kronologic, or as Dan likes to call it, Kronologic.
I don't know which one it is. Someone tell us if you know.
You tend to lead towards Kronologic because that's how the word's pronounced.
It's a word,
but
sure.
it's misspelled. We'll look it up later. But this is a logical deduction game from Origames and Super Meeple, designed by Fabian Gradel and Johan Levette. 1 to 4 players, takes about 30 minutes. We're going to kick it to Dan for the teach.
I'm going to usurp it real quick. I wrote a book. We'll have more at the end of the episode.
He wrote a book. In Kronologic, if you've played Turing Machine before, it has a lot in similar with that. This is a pure deduction game where players are going to be asking the game questions, and then the game is going to be answering them back using its mechanisms, and you're going to be keeping track of it on a little paper like Clue. This game kind of took Turing Machine and Clue and slapped them together. So you have times, people, and locations, and basically each scenario, there are 3 scenarios in the game, have a different thing that you're trying to figure out. It could be who was alone the entire game. It could be who was alone with the detective. Different things like that that are thematically explained through the scenarios. And then to do that, you're just going to say, okay, I want to know about the chauffeur and the stage, when it was in the stage. And you overlay it like this. You guys will get a little answer for when you guys play, and it will give you private information that is only for you that you keep track of, and public information that you tell everyone. So in this case, I would say the chauffeur was on the stage 1 time. I would say that to everyone, and I would mark that down on my sheet. Yep, you guys all get a little hint for that one. And you'll see the sheet has, I don't know which camera is better for that, this looks like, the sheet has all the locations at the different times that you can keep track of information, the letter of the person, how many people were in that room at that time, and also down here through the middle is like you could keep track of how many times each person was in each room. All just basic deduction tracking mechanisms. You're gonna go one at a time, asking questions. You grab any combinations of things you want, take the information, pass it to the next person, and the game ends when someone guesses correctly. When someone chooses to guess correctly, multiple people can guess, and you will all win together if you all get it correct. And it's classic Clue rules. If you get it wrong, you're just out of the game and everyone else keeps playing. But that is the overall rundown of Kronologic. It's Kronologic. I literally said it on accident that time.
Hilarious.
So that's the overall rundown on how to play. It's pretty simple. What are we going to do, Mike?
Well, we're going to go ahead and talk about our thoughts. Bob, what'd you think of Kronologic?
I think Kronologic is it's really good. So I enjoyed Turing Machine, but it can be very abstract, right? Where you're asking, does circle plus square equal triangle? And for people to get their head around that, it's very, very abstract. But this game kind of takes that puzzle and puts a theme that people can understand. When was the detective alone with somebody? Who was by themselves the whole time throughout the night? Things like that. And that makes it more understandable, and I think it makes it reach a larger audience. So I think this will appeal to a lot more people than Turing Machine did. And it's not just solitaire like Turing Machine was. This one has got a lot of interaction with the whole, there's public information you're giving everybody, and there's that private information you're keeping to yourself. And I really enjoy that. I really like the art on it. There are going to be 2 other editions coming out, because this is the Paris 1920. I believe there are 2 other ones.
Yeah,
don't recall.
Cusco and Babylon.
Yep.
Like 1450 and 2500.
Yeah, I'm excited to check those out. And then hopefully also that they can make kind of like in Turing Machine, where they've got online ones where you just can get online and download new puzzles and answers. While this does come with 3 different scenarios and like 5 cases in each scenario. So there's some variety in there. You could technically run out.
How detective likes to get poisoned.
But no, I really enjoyed it. So I think it was done really well.
Spencer?
Yeah, this was, it's all logic, and I always like games like that. It does a fantastic job. This little thing. My only problem was that I kept trying to turn it around, and then I'm like, oh, they don't match up.
I kept doing that too.
That's why
You only flip one thing.
That's why it's rounded.
Yep,
Yeah,
that is
that's
why they
it's
did
rounded.
that.
It really does help. I have nothing bad to say about the game, really. And, I mean, it doesn't take a terribly long time to play it. What's the minimum play on this?
30 minutes, is that what you're asking?
1 to 4 players.
Yeah,
Yeah,
1 to
so you
4
can play
players.
it solo and see how
solo.
quickly you can
That
deduce.
is really awesome.
It is really cool, although I will say, which I know my thoughts are probably next anyway, but I will say one of the highlights of this game over Turing Machine is the player interaction.
Oh my gosh,
So the
That
solo
was
is like, it's
fantastic.
probably really good because Turing Machine is really good, but the fact that you're getting information on everyone else's turn is incredible. It's huge.
And I like how if you pick one and it says 0, it's generally going to give you another guess for free.
So you don't lose your
Because
time.
that way you get some private information, but that 0 can be huge.
Can be useful information. Yeah.
And I guess the only caveat I have, which is the same one I have for Turing Machine, is don't write it down wrong.
Oh, well, yeah.
Don't do that, because that will make you lose.
Yeah.
Be very careful when you write it down.
Sure.
Dan.
Me? Turing Machine is a hidden gem. I think Turing Machine, I think it's in my top 20 games of all time. I love Turing Machine. I love pure deduction games. And this game is incredible. I think there's a few things this game does that is slightly over Turing Machine. And I do think there's some things that I prefer from Turing Machine. So the two huge things that have already been mentioned is, first of all, the player interactivity is incredible in this. It really does feel good. It does mean you have to pay attention on other people's turns, unlike Turing Machine. So if you come from Turing Machine, where the whole thing is just you looking at your own board and trying to math out what it could be, in this one you have to actually be paying attention to what the other person is saying and keeping notes. So there's a little bit more with that. The art direction here is incredible. I love the look of this game, man. All of these pieces out here, the board, the back of the shield that gives you that reminds you of the information of what everything stands for and everything. It's just a great job with this. This board I find very redundant.
Yeah.
It has never come up, but again, it could be future proofing for other scenarios, other expansions. Maybe it will come into more play later, or maybe we'll get into other scenarios in the future that are a bit more complicated and you need to have that board out there. I'm not upset that it's here, but it has never been useful in all the times that I've played it yet. And the thing is, it is definitely a more family weight game than Turing Machine. And that to me is both a positive and a negative. The positive side is this is way easier to teach. It is so much easier to wrap people's minds around Colonel Mustard in the library with the candlestick. That is basically what the theme here is. It is just a lot easier to wrap their minds around that than the classic thing I always say of the triangle plus circle equals square thing. I cannot be around shields. I punch them every second that I'm around. So that's a good thing. But then the negative is I like how thinky and crunching Turing Machine is. Like I really feel like it's a crazy puzzle when you're trying to figure out Turing Machine and put all the different abstract puzzles together and figure out that 3-digit code. This game feels simpler. The deduction is not nearly as deep. It's still there. You're still playing a deduction game, and the person who figures it out fastest did deserve it, most of the time. Sure, there's some luck involved, but most of the time. And Turing Machine is like, dang, he figured that out 2 turns faster than me. Holy crap, good job. It just feels a bit more deserving when you figure out the answer to me. But Kronologic is incredible. I like this game. I cannot wait to see the other 2 versions. I really think this is, if you like deduction at all, and especially if you're trying to introduce it to your family, this is a great game for that. A great intro family weight deduction game. That's just pure deduction. There's no social deduction going on here. It's just figure out the puzzle. I love it a lot. I have only positive things to say, other than it's nice that I have an alternative that is a slightly crunchier version. I can play both. I own both.
Right.
So
there's room for both.
I rarely say that, and I genuinely think in this case there's room for both.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment that this really is kind of like an abridged Turing Machine, and the art and the theme really do cater more to families. What I actually found interesting, though, is that even though Turing Machine, while somewhat themeless, it's got a theme, but its
theme is math.
Not really.
Yeah, it's old punch card computers. I can't think of the word right now.
Math.
I don't know what it is, but even though that one is a little bit more difficult for people to wrap their brains around while they're learning the game, I actually solved Turing Machine multiple times, and I did not get close to solving it here. So I don't know if if what I was deducing out of this was not enough, or clearly not enough. I was not close to figuring it out either times that we won. And I'm not saying that's a fault of the game. Just my experience was that I thought it was easier to deduce in Turing Machine than this. It's easier to wrap your brain around the questions you ask here, where how the numbers relate to each other in Turing Machine is like a problem in itself when you're learning it. But no, I agree that this is a far more approachable, much more enjoyable theme than what Turing Machine is. And the deduction is interesting. If you have one character who starts on one side side of the map, and say they start in the music room on the far east side of the map, and you find out that 0 times did they ever go to the stage, then that means they stayed on the right side of the map for the entire game. We're just going back and forth between those 2 rooms. So there is some interesting deduction to be found in here. But it is an enjoyable game. I somehow found the deduction in Turing Machine to be easier for me to wrap my brain around. The way numbers compare to each other, I found easier to grasp. And not that this is hard to grasp, but I just did not come close to solving the puzzle either time.
Well, yeah, and that's just a classic outlook on different people's mindsets and stuff, right? Your brain just really connects to numbers and maybe doesn't connect so much to people, places, things, you know, like that type of scenario, you know? So
yeah, it is a very, also worth noting, it's a very different logical puzzle.
Yes.
It's not just comparing numbers to each other. It's where are these things moving every hour of the game, and they are guaranteed to move each time. So
yeah, there's
very different.
There's a hidden spatial puzzle element you're doing as well. Like, you don't think about it, but that is what you're doing is a spatial everything, because everyone has to move every turn and they move one adjacent. So figuring out, you know, if you find out where this person was at 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, you can figure out where they were at 2 o'clock, right? Without having to waste a question on that. So there's definitely a spatial element that I think maybe none of us covered.
Well,
you know?
Yeah, and I want to make sure we made that distinction, because same designer, and you can see the influences of Turing Machine, but it's a very different deduction puzzle.
Yeah, and if someone was in a room 3 times, you know they only wandered 1 room away from it ever because they couldn't really get back to it. There's only 6 hours. So that really limits what's going on. There's lots of little things like that come up.
Things you figure out after you play a game or two, and the timing of everything, for sure.
I will say really quick too, my only worry for this game, because this is way over my head, I don't work with spreadsheets and insane AI and all that kind of stuff, but I am worried that this game's not as replayable as Turing Machine. Turing Machine is literally infinitely replayable. You can go to their website and the computer will generate a new type of code for you to do and which questions you have to ask to solve the code. It's infinite. This game, with the way that the scenarios work, with the which person was alone in every room, you know, kind of thing, those aren't infinite possibilities. There's 6 characters.
They might, however, have different criteria that will increase that. Instead of being who's alone, you can say which 2 characters were always together.
Right, and this is what I'm saying, though. You've literally added a new scenario. So scenario-wise, the game is infinite, of course, because every game is. You could come up with new ways to play Lords of Waterdeep, and then the ways to play Lords of Waterdeep is infinite. I'm just saying, by the base rule set, the game is not infinite to where Turing Machine is. I think the easiest way to me is going to be making new maps. I think that is the easiest way to, just by adding a different room layout, boom, everything resets. I think that's probably the easiest way for them to do it in the future, but we'll see, because they could literally have free to download maps on their website that just change the outcomes.
Yeah, because like you're saying, you don't necessarily need that. You just need cards and map.
Exactly. And obviously I'm not saying they would give all that away for free, but I'm saying that is an easy way to have maps on their website. And sure, I guess the cards would matter too, although you could get away with having maps that just are different layouts but have the same locations, and that would just change how everything moves.
Where everything's at. Yeah.
But that's my worry, is that there are 15, I think, right? 5 and then 3. I think there's 15 cases in this game, and then they're not replayable. Once you know the answer, you know the answer. So yeah, and again, technically that's the case in Turing Machine. There's a set amount of things in the rulebook, and once you know that it's 556, you know that. But first of all, it's a lot harder to remember 556 for this answer to this than it is to remember the servant did it or something, right? So that's like a mental leap.
Spoilers.
But then also, the fact that the website, you just click a button and you get a whole new game. Like, so that's my worry, but it does not degrade this game at all.
I think you'll see some fan-made stuff come out for this, like on BGG. It would be very easy to just tweak the rules, like what 2 people, adding those kind of variants. I think would be very easy for fan-made
instead
content.
of everyone moving 1, everyone moves 2, or they can move 1 or 0, or there's all sorts of ways you can mess this up.
1 or 0 would be tough. I was thinking though, the 2, okay, so people are running, so there's some kind of chaotic scenario going on.
Right.
Everybody's moving 2 because they're running someplace.
The place is on fire. Who's the arsonist? Right. Everyone's running around. Right. Everyone moves 2 except one person only moves 1 or something like that. Right. Like they're not scared of the fire or something. Like you can get interesting stuff in there with that. Anyway, We're going to
Fan-made
jump
stuff.
into our scores.
We are. How do we do that, Dan?
Well, I'm glad you threw it right back to me, Mike. We're all going to rate this game from 0.5 to 10, and then we're going to average them all together at the end. So there's just one rating on stuff like Discord and Board Game Geek, but we do want to get our personal opinions out as well.
Before we score it, if you like our content, make sure you like and subscribe. We are on Facebook, we have a Discord, we are on Instagram, and we have a Patreon. If you like our content, support us. We appreciate it. Spencer,
Yeah.
what do you score Kronologic?
I'm really looking forward to seeing the expansions. I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do with this. I'm going to give this one an 8.5 right now, but that could go up.
Bob.
I don't like saying this, but Spencer, you're right. It's an 8.5. I am too worried that, limited replayability, but if they do figure out a way to make more content for this apart from the other 3 versions, I could definitely see it moving up. The fact that it is a very easy entry point, like it was relatively cheap.
And affordable, yeah, exactly.
So it's not like you're paying a bunch and you only get to play 15 times. I mean, if you play any game 15 times, I think you've gotten your money's worth.
I haven't played my favorite game 15 times. My goodness.
Yeah.
Dan.
I love this game. I wish I'd looked up what I had Turing Machine at, but I didn't think about that. I would put this game like barely below Turing Machine for me, but right there. I'm going to give it a 9.
Wow. Yeah, I'm a bit concerned about the replayability for sure. It is a smaller box and it was a low price point. And I enjoy what I'm doing. Deduction games aren't always my favorite, but this is one I do want to play again. I come in at a 7.5.
All right. So, despite Mike's wet blanket,
7.5.
that's going to put us at a 8.4, which is not too bad.
yeah.
Still pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
You did it again, Fabian. Whatever.
Yeah, don't sleep on him.
Yeah.
Yep,
Maybe some
he
good
is
games.
also the designer of Path of Civilization,
My
which
favorite Civ game.
we enjoyed quite a bit as well.
Yep.
So great job, Fabian.
Yep.
They're knocking it out of the park, man.
They are.
Okay, there you go. This has been our review of Kronologic for the Board Game Rundown. I was Mike.
I was Bob.
I'm Spencer.
Je m'appelle Daniel. Au revoir.
What he said.
That too.
And you can say the title's only 3 words.
Do you like reading? Do you like urban fantasy? I hope you'll check out my book, A Sinister Love. It's about a demon named Scribble who gets fired from her desk job in Purgatory and sent to Earth to tempt a human, but she's not very good at it. And then she finds out there's another reason she was fired. The links are in the description. You can check it out on my website.